Hello and welcome. Thanks for clicking on. My apologies for the poor quality of the attempt to go live a couple of weeks ago. I guess I just don't have the bandwidth to do so. So here we are, the Colosseum in Rome. I was always under the impression that this was quite a unique building. It's one of the most visited tourist attractions in Europe. It gets about 5 million visitors, I believe. And the general impression is that it is a unique building. So I realized it wasn't when I was looking for stars, and I found not that I found this, but it was here that I realized in Pula in Croatia that there was another Colosseum which didn't get any mention. Now, the Colosseum, technically by the mainstream definition, would be an amphitheatre. However, I would make a distinction between a Colosseum and an amphitheatre. An amphitheatre being this form, a semicircular, steep-stepped structure that, well, looks like a theatre of sorts. I started noticing these often in the shadow of star features of star cities and towns. And I find them quite remarkable. So yet the Colosseum is an elliptical shape as opposed to a stadium shape, which I don't know if there's one here. There usually are stadia. Yes, no. How interesting. Pula doesn't have very many stadia. You go to any other town and you see dozens of them. Anyway, we'll move on quickly. A stadium would be a straight-sided, semicircle-ended traditional stadium. So here we are in Tarragona in Spain. This one is quite interesting. We can see in this case it is quite, seems to be buried. Now, question is, was it engulfed by the landscape, or was it built into the landscape? Hard to tell. So the overall impression that I have of these is that they are very old structures. This, what looks like a church, was built inside this Colosseum, and this church itself seems to have seen better days. So I would assume that this was obviously, it seems obvious that this was just built afterwards on this, after this was disused, shall we say. Here we are going to Lyon in France. Again, we have the quite distinctive elliptical shape. However, again, we're looking at a subterranean situation. I don't know where that goes off to, because it's very much at a different level. We move over to Lecce, or Lecce maybe, in Italy. Here again, we've got a partial ellipse, and again, what's going on here? Was it buried, or was it cut out of this situation? My inkling is to think that obviously it was bigger. It's more like the one in Rome, had sort of concentric ellipses towards the outside. These foundation stones and pillars are very typical, and as they are pretty solid and good foundations, they do get built upon using its footprint, and that shows through in the structures that are built on top. This is an interesting one. It's a long way away from the Roman Empire. It's hard to see now exactly what's going on. This is a very well-known, unknown place, Timbuktu in Mali. Unfortunately, we don't have 3D imagery, but there is a sign of an amphitheatre, possibly a star, and possibly we have an ellipse, could be a Colosseum. A lot of the Colosseums can be found in Italy, as we are here again in Catania in Italy, and this appears to be an amphitheatre. Well, this certainly is, because they're usually very close neighbours. It could, however, be a partial Colosseum. Again, the same situation. It seems to be sort of, the levels have to be called into question here. And there is what's left of the amphitheatre. If we go over to Israel, imagery on Google Earth for Israel is awful, but I don't think we can dispute that that is an amphitheatre sitting amongst ruins. Pop over to Bulgaria, Plovdiv, and we see the remains of an amphitheatre amongst the ruins of old buildings well below ground level. Down the road we have another nestling in what seems possibly to be a star structure, and has a tunnel running underneath it. So how was that built? Across the Atlantic for my American audience, in Virginia, not too far from Washington DC, if this will ever resolve. Here we go. Okay, it's not much of an amphitheatre, but where there's smoke there's fire, and right beside it we have again star features, and this is, as I said, not far from our old friend and star, the Pentagon, and the Arlington Cemetery. I've done a video on that, so you can check back on that. This is one of the most stunning examples here. Is in Cagliari in Italy. There's definitely a lot of clues and evidence to be drawn by looking at this one. There is no doubt that it was a Colosseum. However, it looks like it was, rather than built on the surface as the one in Rome and others appear, it looks like it was quite literally scooped out of the bedrock. This must be a stunning place to visit, and if we're ever allowed travel again, I hope that somebody can go and check it out. It really is rather amazing. Look at what looks like the rows of seating are twisted and contorted and all, but it all looks like solid bedrock. So there we go. That's they're the ones I will show you on Google Earth, and I'll just show you some more quickly in Arezzo in Italy. Remains of a Colosseum. Arles in France. The Colosseum. Baiae in Italy, forgive my pronunciation. Bergamo in Turkey. amphitheatre amongst ruins. This is not the same one. This is just down the road at the same area, but not the same. Budapest in Hungary. The remains of a Colosseum. Here we have maybe a modern day amphitheatre, but as I said, there's it's in the shadow of the star in Callao in Peru, so it may be on the foundation. In Albania, the remains of a Colosseum. And El Diem in Tunisia, Colosseum. These are those foundation stones talking about earlier. In Fiesole Amphitheatre, Florence. I found this because I saw that there was a Colosseum on a map dating from 1000 AD, and I saw that there was a Colosseum and I went looking for it, couldn't find it, but I did find its site, which is here and happens to be an elliptical form. So building on top of the remnants of the past. Another one in Forli, Italy. Frankfurt in Germany. Could well be. It's the right sort of size for Colosseum and location. Gothenburg in Sweden. Semicircular features are not all that common in old towns, but might be a stretch. This one looks quite round, but it is actually elliptical. In Guatemala we have an amphitheatre. Gubbio in Italy. Key West, it's a possibility, but just to let you know that I'm well aware of this, and thank you to everybody for pointing it out to me. Kronberg, this could be all that's left of a Colosseum. London, England, funny story here. This may or may not be built on an amphitheatre. There is talk of an amphitheatre in the area in London, although not at that particular site and not at this site either. And it was under 8 meters of what they call, it was excavated 8 meters below street level under what they call accumulated waste over the centuries. Now, you going to buy that story? I don't. So again, this could be the site of a Colosseum in London. There's no story to say that there was, but that's my guess from what I've seen. Again, here in Lucca, look at that. We'll often find amphitheatres in pairs, like a multiplex, side by side. Merida, Colosseum, amphitheatre, neighbours, possibly here in the shadow of a star feature, possibly here. Railway locomotive sheds and turntables. Are quite likely sites for ex-amphitheatres. What I noticed, it's funny, I found a few of these. Looks like a railway turntable, but no sign of a railway. Nîmes in France, spectacular on the surface. Old Medina in Morocco, could guess that it was here. Again, not too far from star features. Here in Oradea in Romania, actually on the points of stars, we've got two amphitheatres. Not much left of this one in Udna, in the neighbourhood. Very same. They are very distinctive buildings and have the same features. And my guess is that the footprint can be seen to this day. Palmyra in Syria, amphitheatre amongst the ruins. Paris, France, touching on subterranean here. Poitiers. The reason I put this in is because Poitiers is not too far from where I'm living, and I saw it on the tourist guide, and I said, "Where is it?" I went looking for it, and naturally couldn't find it. But it was here, and there are some traces of the arches down one of these side streets, and that's all that remains today. And there is all the history behind it. Pompeii in Italy. Again, we've got a little multiplex here. We've got two theatres side by side, and not far away we have the Colosseum. This is going back to Pula. Rhodes in Greece. In Spain, in the shadow of star feature. Saint in France. I'll be going to visit this because it's not too far away from me either. In Spain again, these foundation stones, just typical of the architecture. Won't pronounce that either, but it's obvious enough. In Turkey, Syracuse in Italy, and an amphitheatre and a Colosseum. We had a look at that earlier. Algeria. Terni in Italy. Again, same thing, the construction on its foundation, on the, using the old structure as the foundation. Germany, Spain, again in Italy. This is a nice one. The roof of this building literally follows the block of seats. You can see it Ving out. Yeah, just pointing out here in Verona, the outer wall, there's just this much left of it. These are the foundation blocks that I was pointing out earlier, and to Xanten in Germany. So that's not all. There are lots and lots and lots of them, and it would just make a video too long for most people's liking. I try to keep them short if I can and present the best evidence that I can find. And yeah, this one, it just is stunning. I keep coming back to have a look at it because it is quite remarkable. So, no conclusions, just presentation of evidence today, guys. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. I wish you all good luck, and I'll be back. And talk to you then. Bye.